The record will reflect the presence of counsel, the defendant, and the jury. Mr. Barker, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. The state calls Jeremiah Levesque.
Do you solemnly swear, under penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Just call the bail. All right, Mr. Barker, you may proceed when ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Can you state your name for the record, please?
Jeremiah Levesque.
How do you spell that last name?
Levesque, Levesque.
All right, no S sound, right?
No S.
Okay. Where do you work, sir?
Luke Air Force Base.
What do you do there?
I am a H mechanic.
What is it?
We work on hydraulics, generators, engines, just on the mechanical side.
All right. Are you a supervisor?
Yes, sir.
And who do you supervise, or how many people do you supervise down there?
Currently 3.
All right. Do you know someone by the name of Kemper Kefley?
Yes, sir.
And how do you know him?
He's a co-worker of mine.
All right. Do you also know someone named Mark Gooch?
Yes, sir.
You see him in the court today?
Yes, sir.
You point out where he's seated, what he's wearing.
Right there, he's wearing a blue tie.
All right. Can you do a little bit more descriptions there?
Blue tie, he's wearing a black tux, and he's sitting next to the guy wearing the green mask.
All right. Let the record reflect the witness identified the defendant.
I'll say this, the defendant's not wearing a tux, but other than that, I think the record will reflect the identification of the defendant.
All right, very good. How did you know Mark Gooch?
We worked in the same building together at Luke Air Force Base.
Did you supervise him?
No.
Not directly.
Not directly, no.
Did he ever come to you with mechanical issues?
I'm not sure off the top of my head. I don't remember that.
Okay. Now, when you were working down there, what's the time frame that you knew Mark Gooch? Can you give us a time range?
From what I remember, he arrived somewhere around October, and
October of what year?
2019, I believe.
All right. And until?
And up until, I want to say, April was whenever I heard that he had gotten arrested.
All right, so we're talking about, what, 6 months or so?
Sir.
Okay. During that time, did you ever hang out with Mark Gooch?
Yes.
What were you doing?
Most of the time, we would ride motorcycles together. There was one instance where I had broken his motorcycle helmet at work on accident, and I offered to fix it for him, and he came over to my house while I was trying to fix it for him.
All right. Outside of that, any more interactions?
Other than that, it was just like going away, like people leaving Luke Air Force Base, PCSing.
What is that?
Leaving at one duty station and going to another duty station.
Okay.
We would have a little going away party for them. And other than that, like all the coworkers would come and say their goodbyes. Other than that, I never really hung out with them besides riding motorcycles.
All right. So just some motorcycle rides and maybe one time at your house. Was there a time that he asked to store an item in your house?
Yes, sir.
Right. Now, where did you live back in 2020?
The same house that I live in right now.
Is that a house off base?
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, are you aware of a rule that you can't have firearms that are unregistered on the Air Force Base?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Did you have a safe at your house that you stored weapons in?
Yes, sir.
Tell the jury how Mark Gooch approached you about a weapon he had.
From what I remember, he came over to my house. I'm not sure if he called me the day before saying that if he can ask or if he can store it at my house. I don't remember a phone call. I know I don't have any text messages, but he showed up to the front of my house, and he came up to me and he asked, "Hey, can I store something here at your house?" I was like, "Sure, what is it?" And he said, "It's my gun. I heard that we can't have it on base and stuff like that." And I was like, "Yeah, you can't have it on base." I was like, "Temporarily, yeah, sure, I can hold it for you until you move off base, and then you can take your rifle back."
All right. And so did you take possession of that rifle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And where did you put it?
In the gun safe.
Inside your house?
Yes, sir.
All right. Was there any ammunition with it?
Yes, sir.
What type of rifle was it?
It was a 22 long rifle,
And what type of ammo was it?
22 long, or I guess 22 regular.
Okay. Did you look inside the ammo box at all?
No, sir.
Did you manipulate the gun at all?
Can
Can you touch the gun?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. And was that just for the purpose of storing it in your safe?
That was for storing it in my safe, and then there was one time where I was moving my safe throughout my house. I was moving it to a different room, so I took all the weapons out, my weapons and his rifle.
Uh-huh.
I set them on the bed, and then I moved the gun safe into the closet, and then I put all the rifles back.
Okay. When you handed it over, was the rifle in a case of some sort?
Yes, sir. It was a soft case.
All right. Did you open the case and take the rifle out at any point?
I don't remember off the top of my head.
To store that rifle, did you leave it in the case?
No, sir. I believe he took it out of the case and handed it to me.
Okay, so he handed the rifle to you without the case on it, and you put it in your safe?
Yes.
Okay. Now, how long did you store that rifle, would you say?
I would have to say roughly 3 months.
All right. Well, let me back up a little bit. Do you recall the date that he asked you to store that rifle?
I do not.
Do you recall anything about the interaction involving a car wash
A car wash?
or car detail?
Yes.
Okay, describe that.
I know whenever he came over to my house, like I was saying, to ask if he could store the rifle, after all that was over with, I put it in a safe and I put the soft case underneath my bed. After that, we walked outside, and he told me that he got his car detailed pretty good or whatever. So I walked up with him towards his car, and that's whenever like he opened the front door and he asked me to like take a look, take a seat in there or whatever. So, but at that time I had gotten a phone call from a friend, and I was like, "Hey, sorry, not right now, but I'll talk to you later." And then he got in his car and drove away.
All right. So aside from having you store that rifle, the only other interaction was about this car detail he wanted to show?
Yes.
Right. And he wanted you to sit inside the car?
Yes, sir.
All right. Anything else about the interaction that stands out in your mind?
No, sir.
All right. So you mentioned you had that rifle for 3 months or so. Is that a yes?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. At some point, did you have contact with the police about that rifle?
Say that again?
At some point, did you have contact with police about the rifle?
Once I heard that he had gotten arrested, yes.
All right. So did you reach out to the police?
Not me personally. I called my leadership, and that's whenever my leadership contacted OSI, or the law enforcement on base, and I guess they contacted Coconino Sheriff Office, and then I want to say the next day they came down to the house and took pictures and everything, and that's whenever they got the gun.
All right. So do you know, was it Coconino County that came down and got the gun from you?
I believe so.
Right. So Mark Gooch was already arrested before you contacted the police. Is that the timeline?
Yes.
All right. Did Mark Gooch, did the defendant ever talk to you about his upbringing?
To me personally, no. I've heard about it probably through Kefli, just through side talk. I know or I heard that he comes from that Mennonite side, or growing up in that Mennonite community.
But you didn't have more conversations, more in-depth conversations about that?
No, sir.
All right. May I have a moment, Judge?
Yes.
That's all I have.
Thank you. Mr. Griffin?
Mr. Levesque, just one question for you. Could you describe, as you knew it, Mr. Gooch's character, what he was like?
From I guess the first time he arrived on station, I know he was quiet. And I guess beginning the job, he was pretty mechanically inclined, so he got used to it pretty well, pretty easily. And from him being that quiet side, I was just assuming it was his upbringing, the Mennonite coming up. So I didn't think much about it. That's just the way he is.
Did he ever give you any opinion regarding the Mennonite culture at all? Ever say anything about them?
No, sir.
Ever talk negatively about religion in some way?
No, sir.
Go further. Thank you.
Mr. Barker?
Is it fair to say you didn't have that type of relationship with him where he would open up about things like that?
I would say we weren't that close that he would open up about something like that.
Thank you. That's all I have, Judge.
Do the jurors have any question for this witness before he's excused? All right, apparently not. Mr. Barker, may the witness be excused.
Yes, thank you.
All right, you can step down. You're excused. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Barker, you may call your next witness.
Thank you. The state call is George Letty.
Do you solemnly swear, under penalty of perjury, the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Are you okay with taking your mask off just while you're testifying?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Barker, you may proceed when ready.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon.
Can you pull that microphone up just a little bit?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Please state your name and spell it for the record.
Sure, my name is George Letty. It's spelled Jorge, and the last name is Letty, L-E-D as in David, E-E.
Thank you. And where do you work?
I'm currently working for General Dynamics,
And doing what?
doing private security, corporate security.
All right. Before that, what were you doing?
I was a special agent with the Airforce Office of Special Investigations.
All right. And then we've heard that referred to as OSI. Is that right?
Correct.
And what was your responsibility there?
I was the second in command, so I was the superintendent and assistant special agent in charge.
And what were some of your duties as second in command?
I would control the operations, the training, basic housekeeping, might it be vehicle fleet, things like that, but mostly investigative work, operations, and the management of the personnel.
And how long were you doing that job?
Here in Phoenix or in totality?
Say in total.
I was an agent for OSI for probably 13 and a half years. I was a supervisory special agent or superintendent ASAC since February-ish of 14.
Right. What type of training did you go through to become a special investigator?
Well, all federal agents, for the most part, in the U.S. System will go to FLETC, the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center, which is in Brunswick, Georgia. With the exception of FBI and DEA, they have a private school in Quantico. So all agencies will go there. You go through a basic criminal investigators training program, which is a standard across the industry. And then once you're completed with that, then you specialize into your respective modality or your agency specific. So you may be in a course with a DEA agent, an ETA or an EPA person, an OSI, NCIS, and once you graduate that, then you go to your specialties or your specific niches.
Okay. So at Luke Air Force Base, you mentioned you were second in command. Does that mean people would report to you about investigations that were ongoing? Okay, and you would oversee those investigations?
Correct, oversaw all the investigations.
Let's talk about some of the security measures and investigative measures you had there on the base.
Okay.
We've heard about some surveillance video. Are you aware of that?
Correct, yes.
And that's all over the base, is that fair?
For the most part, in a highly, the more sensitive areas, but definitely on the flight lines, on installation entrance points, and then dormitories and whatnot.
Okay. And then there's also security gates, right?
Correct.
What's the system for someone entering that gate?
So you have an on-duty, since 2001, or since September 11th, there is no such thing as an open gate anymore. So you have an on-duty sentinel who is a gate guard who will positively identify every person coming onto the installation via their identification card. And then there's also a DBID system, it stands for the Defense Biometric Identification Database. And what that is you approach the gate, you'll show your ID card, they'll scan it. That database allows for a lateral communication through the administrative side, through the law enforcement side, or for general warnings as a whole. So for example, the day I retired, it changed my status on that card, and then if my ID card expired, it would come up, hey, you're expired, and then whatnot.
And you wouldn't be let in?
And they would not let me in.
Bummer. So with that gate security, you said there's a live sentinel. So there's someone there that has to verify that that's the person. It's not just swiping a card.
Correct. It's not a proxy card or a proximity card or something like that where you just passively or actively, just hit it yourself. You actually surrender your identification to the sentinel. The sentinel will look at it, and they'll identify you as a person. If they're utilizing the DBID system, they will look at the card, they will scan it, so there's a light emitted into the skew bar on the ID card. It'll place a photo of that individual in their handheld device, and then they'll do a comparison right there.
All right. And is there a report that can be generated about all the times or all the instances, say, an individual enters the base?
Mm-hmm. Yes, there is.
And is that the DBID system we're
That is the
talking about?
DBIDs, correct. So it's a database there's an exportable function to it.
All right. And it will identify the person and the time and date they entered?
Correct. It'll give, it'll sometimes show, depending on how you query it, it'll show 2 times. It'll show a UTC, and it'll show a local time, because obviously there's more locations than just Phoenix.
All right. And UTC is what?
UTC generally is known as Zulu or Greenwich Mean Time. So it's a standard one time that the military as a whole uses, so that way all personnel across the globe are in sync.
All right. And is that generally 7 hours ahead of Arizona time?
So for Arizona, it's 7 hours.
Okay. Let me ask you about firearms on the base.
Mhm.
Is there a rule or a procedure about how to store firearms on a base?
Absolutely. Similar to state rules where you can't bring firearms onto city buildings or state buildings or things like that, the federal government has the exact same rules. No firearms are allowed onto a federal installation, period. The only ones allowed are for official use, might it be law enforcement, things of that nature. And then there's a subsection where we do have base housing. So we understand that military members do possess firearms. So with the permission of their commander, they can have it logged and registered. And then it has to be a direct from gate to their domicile. And then the configuration of that weapon has to be a certain way. A number of years ago, it was weapons separated from ammunition, things like that, but it's a certain configuration. Now, understandably, we have also dormitory residents as well. With them, they don't have a dorm base house that they can keep it in, so the courtesy is allowed that they can utilize the base armory. And then the base armory, what they do is they come through the gate, they surrender their weapon at the base armory. The base armory will keep it safe and secure for them, so that way they don't have access to it. And then whenever at their leisure, they can just pick it up and recover it. The base armory is a 24-hour service, so it's at their leisure, they can just get it.
All right. And so they would have to register it with Armory? Is that a fair way to say it?
Correct.
Okay. Tell me about the dorms. You mentioned that just a moment ago. Who's typically living in the dorm area?
So a dormitory, if you think of the military as a triangle, the bulk of the personnel inside of it will be a younger demographic, traditionally 18 to 26. And those are your E1s through E3s, E4s, and then also on the officer side, you have the O1 through O3s. Now, for the E side of the house, the enlisted side, there's bachelor dormitories, pretty much what it's considered nowadays in today's vernacular. It would be like similar to a bachelor dorms, but what it is it's quarters provided to any military member coming in, so that way we don't have to worry about housing. You know, we don't want anyone homeless, so they're given free quarters, free barracks, things like that. And then they stay there for a period of time until they get to a certain grade or to a certain tenure inside the military, and then they rotate out.
All right. Now, were you asked, let me ask you specifically about this case, were you asked, and OSI asked, to assist in an investigation around Mark Gooch?
Yes.
All right. And what was your role in that?
Well, we were introduced to the Coconino County Sheriff's Office through our task force officer, who we have someone who sits at the Joint Terrorism Task Force at the FBI building. OSI itself is the formal conduit between the Department of the Air Force and law enforcement. So our TFO, our task force officer, introduced us to the Coconino County Sheriffs, who came in and briefed us on the case itself. And then we identified the individual as an active duty member, therefore putting us into the mix, going, okay, we do have an active duty person who's alleged or suspected of something, so then we get involved. OSI traditionally stays in felony level occurrences.
And so as part of that, I imagine you were briefed on the investigation up to that point, correct? Do you recall when that happened, when that conversation about we're going to start assisting Coconino County?
It would have been April 15th, I believe, is when the meeting occurred.
In 2020?
2020, my apologies.
Okay.
Yes.
And so you're aware of the situation with Sasha Krause disappearing on January 18, 2020?
Correct.
Body found February 21st, 2020?
Correct.
So we're talking a couple months after that?
Correct.
All right. You mentioned Mark Gooch was identified as an enlisted member on the base. What was his position there?
So Mark Gooch was a mechanic for the aerospace ground equipment. So what that translates to is generators and whatnot that support the fleet and support the aircraft system. But it's different from aircraft. And it falls under the EMS, which is the Equipment Maintenance Squadron. So that squadron is kind of it has all the mechanics in there. Might it be fighter mechanics, might it be these guys, that guys, and then they're all in one, they're all bracketed in one kind of pool.
Okay. And was he living in the dorms on the base?
He was.
And which dorm building was it, in which room, do you recall?
I don't recall off the top of my head, no. It was I know the location off looking at it.
You know it visually?
I know it visually.
Okay. Would that information be in a report of investigation?
It would be in our report of investigations. It would be in our notes.
All right. May I approach the witness, Judge? Is that the report of investigation?
That is our report, yes.
Question was what building and which room number he lived in, if you could tell us that.
Building 634, room 206.
206. That would be the second floor?
Correct.
Okay. Now, in that area, we've heard some testimony already that there's surveillance video capturing kind of the parking lot area. Is that right?
That is accurate.
As part of this investigation, was some of that surveillance video examined and produced in that report?
Absolutely, yes, it was.
And we've heard from Adrian Morales, who indicated there was a video showing Mark Gooch leaving on the 18th, the morning of the 18th of January. Was there also video showing the defendant leaving on January 21st,
Yes. There
2020, I should say?
was.
What time, approximately?
It would have been around 1800, which is 6 p.m.-ish.
Do you need to refer the report to refresh your memory?
What day was that again, sir?
January 21st. And I think I can help you out here. Can I approach the witness, sir?
Yes. Yes. So these are the photographs that the closed-circuit television captured that matched the likeness of Mr. Gooch's vehicle.
Okay, and these are still photos from that surveillance?
Correct.
Okay. And is one of those 179, does it show a car leaving on January 21st, 2020?
And it shows it at 1852, which is 6:52 p.m.
Okay, close to 7 p.m.
Correct.
Is there also an image that shows that car returning?
Yes, there's an image showing it returning on the 22nd at 0:40, which would be 40 minutes past midnight.
Okay. So that was the 21st to the 22nd. Let me go back to the 18th. You're aware that there was also video showing the defendant returning on the 19th in the morning hours?
Correct.
Okay. Is that, now we talked about that gate security. Do those times coincide with that gate security that he would have had to enter the base?
Yes.
Okay. May I approach the witness again?
Yes, sir. So this is the D-beds or the database scan history.
All right, and that shows, this one in particular
This is for
shows
Mr. Gooch.
for Mark Gooch?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it would show when he entered the base, what date and time,
Correct.
right? And does it cover the dates that we just talked about?
Has the, yes, has the 17th, the 22nd, and what was the other date you were looking for?
Sorry, I didn't get that last response. I just didn't understand what you said. Could you?
Oh, my
repeat it?
apologies. Yes, so it does cover the dates and times.
Okay.
It does reflect that, yes.
The dates we were talking about was January 18, January 19 would be the return date, and then January 22nd would be the other return date we just talked about.
Right, so the January 19, it shows a return or an entry via the Cochina Gate at 06:53 local, our time, and then once again at 4:26 local.
All right. Move to admit Exhibit 152.
Any objection to 152 being admitted?
No objection.
All right, 152 is admitted. You may.
Now it says at the top there, e-bids, that's what,
Correct, sir.
and person scan history for it, it's another way.
It's just the name that they placed on there as a personal history.
That's for,
Correct. If you look at the top right portion of that page, it'll say who prepared it, when it generated, and then it'll actually, when you query the system, you query the system by social security number, and you'll see on the right side his social, the last four of his social. Obviously, for privacy, it's always taken in consideration when they print them.
so mention that right name, or not right name. So it was generated at what date?
April 16th, 2020, at 2:56 UTC, so you would have to -7 on that.
But April 16th, that would have been the day after you were introducing Maclean County Airforce.
Correct. And then it also puts it at UTC, so you would have to make up for the Zulu time to local time.
That's fair. So would that be 7 hours ahead?
Correct. So that would be
We actually talking about
8 o'clock at night-ish, some, on the 15th, it was queried. No worries.
so actually the same day to help out.
Correct.
Let's go to the, go down here. On the left-hand side, it says airport space. This is the,
Correct. So DBIDS works in multiple installations. This one happens to be from Luke.
what is the south?
So that refers to the actual gate, so the south gate, and the south gate is building 899.
And times, they're all describable.
Absolutely. So if you look at the column to your left, your column to your left is going to be your Zulu time. Similar to if it was 7 o'clock in the morning in England, it would be obviously midnight in the US because they're further east than us. So that would be on your left side. And then the local time is reflected on your right.
Down here, the dates that we were talking, some highlighted dates here, we were talking about that.
Mhm.
You mentioned retreat.
It shows here at 0039, which would have been 39 minutes after midnight.
Back to that still, Steve.
And it,
What's the return time on that?
and it puts it at a 1 minute later, entering the dormitory.
Entering the dormitory part,
Correct.
just going down that same column. Entry on the 17th as well.
Yes, sir.
So there's a gap there. Is this gate going to show exiting? That's it.
Just entering.
Scroll. Second. What's the difference here on this second? It's just a different.
Correct. So if you look at the top right of that page, it says Kachina. So the Kachina gate is on Glendale Avenue, just east of Litchfield and west of Dysart.
What does this say?
So on this one, what it says is on the 19th of January at 06:53 local, he entered the Kachina gate.
Let me ask you about, we talked about firearms on base. Is it possible that someone could have a firearm in the trunk of a car and OSI wouldn't know about it?
Absolutely. It's unfortunate, but it's 100% possible and probable.
These gates we're talking about, they don't search every car going through.
No.
We heard testimony earlier about random searches. How random is it?
Extremely random. So random, a good example would be I was there for 4 years on station, 4 to 5 years, and I had never been searched. So
Okay.
that random. But it happens with, what it does is there's a, without going into the weeds of the security apparatus of it, there's a calculus of a number of measures that can be done. Randomly, one or multiple of those are selected, then where those will be applied, and then where those and the times are all randomized. So it's truly random.
All right. What would be the consequence if someone had a gun on a base unregistered?
They would be arrested, and they would be prosecuted.
Did Mark Gooch ever register a gun with the Armory?
Not at all.
Now, in this investigation, you also assisted with facilitating an interview. Do you recall that?
I do.
Okay. Do you remember when that happened?
Which interview?
I'm sorry, an interview with Mark Gooch, maybe more specific.
Yes.
Okay.
That was on 21 April of 20, I believe it was.
All right, so we were talking about a report April 15th. This is just a few days later.
Correct.
In the interim, clearly Mark Gooch was a suspect or at least someone of interest in the case. Was there some surveillance being done of him?
Yes, so immediately after our meeting with Coconino County Sheriff's Office, I ended up recalling a number of my agents in, so that way we can put a surveillance package or bubble around him, because obviously the allegation and the severity, we just want to make sure that we have eyes on people.
Sure. So tell the jury about how you facilitated the interview of Mark Gooch.
Well, traditionally what will happen is, especially on a military installation, it's common for us to facilitate these in either a commander or a first sergeant or in the office that they're at. Part of it is we'll use multiple guises to do that. Part of it is because without knowing where they're going to be at on the installation, arrests sometimes go peaceful, sometimes they don't. And we just don't want it to happen, number one, next to an expensive multi-million-dollar piece of equipment, state-of-the-art equipment, and also to just keep face of the individual, because everyone is an accused, right, until proven. So we do it in a more controlled environment, and it's safer that way. So with this particular one, I contacted his first sergeant in his command. So his first sergeant is an administrative right arm to the commander for goodwill and discipline and morale and welfare of troops. Contacted her, that was Deborah James, or Rebecca James rather, my apologies. Contacted her, said, hey, we're going to need to interview him, so pull him in. And we coordinated with him and her and the commander. And what we did is we asked them to come in under a guise of a urine analysis, which is pretty common in the military. And it allows them to come in, at their leisure. There's nothing confrontational about it. And then once he was brought in for that, then we made contact, myself and Detective Lauren Jones.
Lauren Jones at the time, Lauren Nagel now.
Correct.
Okay.
Congratulations.
And back when you were doing that interview, where was that interview held?
We picked him up at his workplace, and then we did it in our office in building 1144 on Luke Air Force Base, which is the field office's office.
All right. And did you watch the interview? Did you participate in it? Tell us about that.
So Coconino led the interview. We participated in the aspect of facilitating location, facilitating equipment. I observed segments of it through the cameras in the room, but actively engaged in the interview, no.
May I have a moment, Judge?
You may. Thank you. Mr. Griffin?
Good afternoon, sir. Just one follow-up.
Yes, sir.
Are you familiar with policy on the Air Force Base regarding the use of gloves for mechanics?
The use of glove for mechanics?
Yes.
I'm not a mechanic, so I couldn't tell you what their policy is with that. I would imagine they have some, but
Thank you. I have no further.
yeah, sorry.
Mr. Parker?
No follow-up.
Do any of the jurors have a question for this witness? Okay. will you approach, please? So I'm going to ask you the jurors' questions as they're written. At Luke Air Force Base, are the dorm rooms shared, or do the enlisted mechanics have their own dorm rooms?
There are multiple dorm rooms. As years go by, we as in the military upgrade with it. So when I came in 26 years ago, we were 2 in a room, sometimes 4 in a room. As it's evolved, they're separated, but they're made into more of a friendlier and a little bit more independent than we had. So Mr. Gooch's room in particular would have been a common area shared, which would have been a kitchen, common area shared. However, the entrances to each of their individual rooms would have been locked with their own private bathrooms. So that way you still give them autonomy and independence, but they share a laundry facility and a kitchen with only one other person and laundry with only 3 other people versus the days of us drugging around downstairs.
How often are the enlisted military persons caught with unregistered firearms?
Unfortunately, it's not frequent, and usually, the reason I say unfortunately, the only time we traditionally become aware of it is if during a random anti-terrorism measure, which is what we were talking about when they randomly search vehicles or things of that nature, when they're found there at that time, or if there's someone who advises us, hey, so-and-so has a weapon, so we have to mitigate it, or if the individual is being looked at for something totally independent of that, and through our investigation or through personal, as we're doing a search or something, it's discovered.
When was Mark notified of the firearms policy?
The firearms policy is pretty, I couldn't tell you when he was personally notified because I wasn't present for that. However, it is every person that comes onto the military installation, there are signs everywhere that identify that it's a private installation, search and seize, no firearms, deadly force is authorized. Those signs are put, I want to say, every 100 feet or something like that when you're entering the installation. I could be wrong with the footage. And then also when people come on to, there's a thing called FTAC, which is the First Term Airman Center. It's something we do for young enlisted guys coming in because they're coming from multiple subcultures. So you want to kind of put them all in the same, hey, these are the rules of the lane and whatnot. And in that, I would imagine there's going to be a security briefing with that, and the security apparatus just doesn't allow for it. I know I'm dating myself, but back in the late 90s when I was a security policeman, I used to provide that brief to the base theater, to the base masses as they would come in, and that was definitely part of our slide deck. Hey, you're unlawful to come on here with a firearm. And then we would give them the services of how to properly do it.
So you may have already possibly answered the second part of this question. When and where are enlisted men / women notified of the policy?
Traditionally on the inception of coming into the military. Now, an exact date I couldn't tell you because that's unfortunately not what I do or did past tense.
Any other questions from the jury for this witness before I turn the witness back over to counsel for follow-up? All right, no other questions from the jury. Mr. Barker?
Just on that last point, so there's a type of orientation, it sounds like, where they're told, hey, here are the rules for the base, right? But aside from that, there's signs posted everywhere on the base about not having a firearm.
Correct. Well,
registered, I should
right.
say.
Well, correct. And then also, one of the things we lean on is just general education as well. So the same way in the state of Arizona, you can't bring certain weapons on. It would be reciprocal on there. But for firearms, for sure. Yes. There's some kind of, how that orientation metabolizes and actually is delivered, I couldn't speak to it. But it's definitely not something that's not uncommon. It's not like it's a surprise.
Thank you.
Mr. Griffin?
No follow-up?
All right, Mr. Barker, may this witness be excused.
Yes, thank you.
All right, you may step down, you're excused.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. All right, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, well, Mr. Barker, and Mr. Griffin, I'm just thinking it's 6 minutes till 4. Maybe it makes sense to go ahead and take our evening recess.
I agree, Judge. Thank you.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we're going to be taking our evening recess. If you could be back in the jury room between 8:45 a.m. and 8:50 a.m. so that we can try to get you in as close to 9 as possible. That's always my goal every morning. Sometimes things come up or we're working on the case and need a few more minutes before we're ready for you. But that way, if you're all there, as I've been saying, it helps us to get you in as soon as we can. So remember the admonition. Please keep an open mind. Do not formulate any opinions about the case. Do not talk to anyone about the case. Do not let anyone talk to you about it. And of course, that includes each other. Have a good evening. We'll see you tomorrow morning. Please be seated. Record will reflect the jury's been excused for the evening recess. Counsel, anything we need to talk about before you go for the evening? Although, Mr. Barker, you're staying, right? Because you have a sentencing with me on an unrelated matter. Okay. Okay, all right. So, normal schedule tomorrow. If you can be here about by 8:45, that way, if you have something to put on the record, we'll have some time to do that. All right. We stand in recess in this trial.